podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Zero Pucks Given, the UK Ice Hockey Podcast. We are in partnership with the Hockey Art Co, hockey clothing for hockey people, worn by the best and hated by the rest. Listeners to Zero Pucks Given get a 10% discount off everything site-wide at hockeyartclothing.co.uk. Just use the code ZP10 upon checkout to get your discount. And we are also in our final week of our sponsorship period with Manscaped, redefining the gentleman with exceptional male grooming products. If you use the code ZeroPucks, all one word, all caps, at manscaped.com, you'll get 20% off and free shipping on any of your purchases there. I'm nice and fresh today. I can possibly not show you where I shaved earlier, otherwise I will probably get cancelled off of YouTube and all sorts of other places. But yeah, you vouch for me, that works incredibly well. So, and we are also on the Sports Social Podcast Network, the largest sports podcast network in Europe. So we're absolutely thrilled to be a part of that. And it just goes to show really just how much Zero Pucks has grown in the sort of the last sort of year and a bit that it's been going. So yeah, fantastic stuff. This is episode 91. I'm Ben. Welcome along to Zero Pucks Given. Absolute pleasure this episode. Joined by a guy I started speaking to Dean about a year ago. He was quite excited about the podcast and that it was getting a little bit more details out there about the game in general, but at the time it was really mainly a lot of chance for Chieftain stuff. And Dean Birrell has had an awful long kind of tie with the Chieftains. He's been many roles within the club, come back every time a sort of a coach seems to depart. Dean seems to appear on the bench as well to do his thing. So it was a real great honour to speak to Dean Birrell. And we'll get to that just in a minute. A little bit of breaking news that we had come out today is that Slough Jets putting their roster together for the next couple of years. Of course, last week they confirmed that they've got Seb Moore on signed for 2 years. Today have confirmed that Jack Goodchild has done the same and has locked in for 24-25 and for 25-26. So Smits is certainly putting a strong young roster together to take on the other teams in South 1. So, with that news out of the way, we will get straight to our chat with the main man, Dean Birrell. Zero Pucks Given in partnership with the Hockey Art Clothing Company, with Manscaped Male Grooming Products, and on the Sports Social Podcasting Network. Absolutely delighted to welcome Dean Birrell. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Good, very well, thank you.
I mean, thank you so much for joining me. This is something we actually spoke about well over a year ago, and we've finally got round to getting it on. Yeah. Well, because I mean, at that time, you'd done a role then that you've done a couple of times. You stepped in to sort of take helm of the Chelmsford Chieftains after the departure of Mark Saunders, as you'd done the season before after the departure of Joe Wilson. So it was
kind of fighting fires. I had spoken with Derek at length after Joe sadly left about who to bring in, and I had mentioned that Mark I thought would be a really good fit, so I was kind of surprised that never worked out for both parties here. But yeah, it's always kind of a pleasure to come back and do something like that with, help out with a team, that I've been there a long time with Chelmsford, and been affiliated kind of with them for a long time. So, I've got a lot of time for Derek. So, if he needs a little hand now and then, it's not a problem.
Yeah, so through the years, obviously roles including assistant coach, head coach, director of hockey operations, a lot of involvement with the Chieftains and the Warriors, and as you say, popping back from time to time to offer a helping hand when it's required.
Yeah.
But currently with the Oxford City Stars and the junior setup.
In the junior setup now, yeah, my lad Archie is playing for the under-16s and the under-18s, and, you know, I was down at the rink, so it was a case of, right, get the skates on again, and back onto the ice we go.
Occupational hazard.
Yeah, and it's different from working with adults and senior players. Going to, 14 to 16, 17-year-olds and working with them. I don't think I've changed too much. I'm still quite old school and very shouty. But we seem to be doing not too bad so far.
Funnily enough, that's excuse me. That's something I sort of had a chat with Pete Wynn about when Pete was on the podcast. Was that as you move forward in coaching, especially now if you've gone from coaching men to coaching juniors, is there things you now cannot say, cannot do because times have just changed?
Yeah, there's things
as mad as it may be.
Certainly aware of, I mean, I was speaking to Pete at the weekend there because he brought his Swindon kids down, and there's certainly things like I'm very conscious of going in a changing room unless I've got another adult there. I'm kind of lucky in a way that they are sort of a bit more worldly, the age group that I work with. But yeah, I mean, your language is a thing. You used to maybe put your arm around a kid and speak to them and just things like that. You've kind of got to be conscious of now, and it's sad in a way, but it's something that you don't want to find yourself in that kind of predicament that someone says something and you go, whoa, hang on.
Mad times, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a bit of a shame. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, some of the coaches I had, Dean Anderson and Jonker Johnson, from Durham, and if you weren't listening, you got a clout. Jonker's given me a few wallops over the chops, I remember one time in the old Durham rink, this is how old I am, under 16, and we would go down there and we'd train on a Friday night and we'd get off the ice about 12 o'clock, and I stupidly never brought any more sweat gear, so I hung it up in this freezing cold place, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I remember standing there and he was describing a drill and I had soaking wet sweats on, and it was 7 o'clock in the morning. And I think I got fascinated by some pigeons up in the broken windows, and I just got this wallop from the side. And I, hey son, listen up. Oh, sorry, John, and that was just the way it was there, Dean Anderson, he was another one. He would, just tell you to do something, and you kind of never thought twice about it. Off you went, and you got it done, kind of thing, back then. But times have changed with the coaching now, sure, big style.
Do you find it is it preferable coaching juniors to adults? Do you find they listen a bit more?
You get, well, not so much they listen more. I think you see a greater difference and more product from them, in a quicker time. 'Cause I give my kids a playbook, believe it or not, and I just feel that them looking at it and us going over it on a blackboard really helps them in that way, and then we'll break it down onto the ice and things like, systems and traps and special teams and things like that I was told when I done it, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that with these kids, Oxford hasn't had the best sort of production line with players, and I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give them that playbook and work on these things, and they really took to it. And we've broken away again. It was all small area stuff that they were doing from the under 14s. So by the time they came to big area things in the game itself, at times they were lost. So I was like, right, we need to stretch this ice out and get them skating with the puck and get them attacking on a 3-on-2 and, such and such, and back checking and working hard in those areas and things. So, and I found that quite quickly they started to take some things really on board. You know, traps and stuff like that, and you're like, great, look at this, and that was really rewarding for me, really rewarding. And that was I've had them a couple of years now, and they've started to put some wins on the board now, which has been great for Oxford as well. But yeah, in the older ones, you'll always get the one or two superstars that will do it their own way. And, you know, you just sometimes, you might just have to leave them to it because, you know, they're doing a good job doing it their own way sometimes, you know.
So do you think they're having that book something tangible that they can actually sort of say, right, this is what he wants us to do? That really did help their brains get it in gear?
It did, because, you know, a lot of them, their minds wander if you sit them in a classroom. But, you know, if you kind of put the book in front of them and say, right, over the next sort of couple of months, be looking at it, there's some that will, there's some that won't. And that was something I really had to get my head round with coaching juniors was, some kids are there for a laugh. And some kids are there for the exercise, and some are for the social side. Not every kid wants to be the next, you know, Wayne Gretzky, you know. So you're kind of like, right, okay, that's fine, that's acceptable, you know. It was like my missus. We used to go and watch the football with Archie, and you know, he never got on for the last 10 minutes. And I'd be like, come on, you've got to stop saying it. And she's like, he's not going to be a footballer. He is in no way going to make any type of Premiership team. And I was like, okay, right, okay. But just kind of my mentality and drive, it was never a thing. But yeah, once you get your head around that, you can work with it. You can work with it more. But it is rewarding. It's very rewarding. I kind of wish I'd maybe broke it in a little bit sooner. But yeah, you know, at the moment, it's not to say I'll never go back to seniors. It's good at the moment. At the moment, it's good.
I mean, would you say then, as you were saying there about, you know, not every kid there wants to be the next Wayne Gretzky or, you know, for instance, like the next Liam Kirk, the next, you know, Dowdy or something. Do you think it's something in this country then that the top level isn't sort of offering enough to the young players to make them think, I can make that level, and they see that the NHL is the real sort of top focal point, but they know it's unachievable?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be careful. Oxford is a funny little club. And when I first went to it, I said it was a sleeping giant, and to this day I still believe it. With the seniors, it was starting to build with Shane Moore there. Unfortunately, Shane's left now. And you can almost, you know, from what I've heard, the crowds are sort of slumping, and, you know, you've got like Hullaby and those players that some of our kids linked to the import side of it. You know, both the imports have gone and left now for the Stars, and for Oxford juniors, sometimes the link isn't that strong to the Stars for whatever reason. A lot of them have got a lot of other stuff going on in Oxford, but I mean, within the city itself, it's sometimes not promoted in the best way.
No.
And you know, they could. But like I say, it was going in that direction. Whether it carries on now, that remains to be seen, really, to be fair.
Yeah, you can't really fault the off-ice promotion of Oxford this year. That's been quite good.
I mean, they've been pushing it on the you know, the social side. But it's probably like a lot of places, you know, you could probably speak to 10 people in Chelmsford, and, you know, 3 of them, you know, two or 3 of them might say, oh, I didn't know there was an ice hockey team and they played ice hockey. I think you speak to 10 people in Oxford, and 7, 8 of them don't know that there's an ice hockey team. You know, it's just not really covered in Oxford its own, and that's where I see is a massive downfall for the club, even for the junior club. But I think, you know, we're working hard on changing that within the juniors, and that's, you know, something that we need to do.
Yeah, well, with the seniors, it has been a tough year at the start of the year, the roster they put together and everything that was coming out on their socials and everything looked incredibly exciting. But obviously Simon didn't quite work out this year, and he sadly left. I think it was just before Christmas. Were you ever in the frame to step into his shoes there?
No. No, I don't think so. Not with the current management. When I was there, I left the team. The truth of the matter was, I told them that I'd be leaving at the end of the season, and they said, and I had done that with Derek before. I gave them plenty of warning that I was stepping down, and we spoke about it. And I said, Derek, let's get other coaches in and have a look at the setup, the team, and that's when we got Gary Clark down. And he came and looked at it, and he watched the game, and he was like, yeah, okay, I'm on board here. And then the mantle was handed over to him. Well, I sort of felt that at Oxford, and I said to them, that this was my plan, and I think I had about 8-10 weeks to go. And they said, you have to tell the team. I said, well, I can't tell the team, I'm going to say bloody skate, and they're going to say, yeah, jog on, mate, you leave in 2 weeks. So, and we were a goal scorer away. We were a sniper away from stealing points from people. We were always 2-3 goals away. We had a couple of hide-ins, but we were always kind of in the mix with it there. And then it became, they insisted I told the team, and there was a combination of other sort of bits and pieces. I mean, if they had the setup they had now, I don't see there'd be an issue, with the promoting it and the pushing it and stuff like that. And that's what I'd kind of asked for. So, yeah, I ended up just getting the players together in a meeting and saying, gentlemen, this is my situation. I hope you understand. All the best. Take care. So, yeah, there's it's not... Dean's not the first name to get pushed in front of the stars at the moment, unfortunately. It's what it is. It's no problem.
Do you think that the club utilised the university that's in the city?
No. Don't get touched. Doesn't get touched, no.
Really?
There's a lot of things, there's a lot of things within Oxford that doesn't, you forget that it's quite, you got a lot of tourists in there. When I go on holiday, sometimes, if I'm in a place, I went to, I don't know, Sweden or Norway or something, I'd have a look in the sports shop to see if they've got the local ice hockey team or, stuff like that. Again, I sort of said to them, right, put a shirt in there, an Oxford shirt in there. That guy from Toronto's going to go, bloody hell, I'm going to get my little Johnny this, Oxford ice hockey shirt. You'll love that back in Toronto. Areas like that kind of hadn't been touched. The university, there is a little something about that some of them players are fantastic, by the way. The tier ones are absolutely. I watched a Cambridge and Oxford game, and I was like, Jesus, some of them players would walk right into a team without even passing goal, no doubt. I think it's whether I'm not sure if they can do it or the import ruling and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure, but no, not even the fans. I mean, I've seen it like packed to the rafters at Oxford with the university. They let them in for free, and they go, come watch, and it's been absolutely all these just students. But it's something that really needs to be looked at, again, that's something that really could happen.
Yeah, I know the Cambridge Kodiaks have actually done that. They've utilised the Cambridge University, and they've got some fantastic players playing in the WNIHL with them there.
Yeah.
The Great British University side played out in, I think it was Lake Placid in New York at the end of last year in a tournament and did relatively well for how they normally do. They did relatively well. But it's... Again, how do they kind of expect the sport in this country to grow if it's not getting the balls put behind it?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that just alone, I've always had quite a few ideas, and within our juniors, we're starting to utilise them a bit now. But there's still a lot more that we can be doing and pushing on to grow our club, that's for sure. And, it just needs, it's been treading water for a long time. And it just needs to just start swimming.
Hello, this is Ohavia Phillips.
And I'm Dennis Reed.
And as members of Charlotte's Black community, we're proud to call the Queen City home.
And with Charlotte Love Notes, we're sharing our love story and spotlighting the Black-owned businesses that make this city so special.
That's right, the restaurants, shops, and more that we love and express the craft and culture of Charlotte's Black community.
So head to charlottesgotalot.com to see our love notes and plan your trip.
And show your love to the community that inspires us.
Yeah. We've said with pretty much every guest. We're looking now, the senior men are sort of 3 games away from the Olympics. The senior women are sort of following in behind for Team GB. That could be a massive boost to the sport as long as that's marketed and handled right. But so with the juniors, I mentioned last week I had James Waddington from the Chelmsford Academy.
Yeah.
Who's in with the Rattlesnakes. You might have a similar problem in Oxford. Is there an issue with getting players that aren't legacy players, as I would call them, that have got family that have played the sport, just trying to attract those completely new kids into the sport?
We've started to do it with our Learn to Play, and it's still early days with that. I know Chelmsford's Learn to Play system, Richie Whiting runs that, and I spoke to him a couple of times about it, and they've got more kids on Learn to Play than we've got in our club.
Wow.
And we're happy to plod along with that. And I'm like, no, let's push. Come on, let's do something. I think Richie said they had some 60 kids on the ice and 40 on a waiting list. The thing with Oxford is we've got great opportunity for kids. Good amounts of ice time, good quality coaching, and there is some opportunities to go up and down, it's the getting it out there. You generally find those players who have played, their kids come down for a skate and they either take to it or they don't. Yeah. It's one of those, or excuse me, the parents sort of keep them interested and push them on with it. We it's a bit of a vicious circle almost in Oxford. You've not had that many. There's always the senior teams has never had that core that often. We did have quite a good core when we had, say, Joe Edwards, Josh Oliver, Dax Hedges, the Flories, Oxford kids, Oxford guys. That's kind of gone and done, and we haven't redone that. We haven't looked at that, so we're always buying players in now. We've got a couple of kids. We've got the likes of Jake Williams, who's back, Tom Ravenscroft. But I was thinking, and when I did do it, I was I had those guys, Ravenscroft, Williams, Aidan McGurk, Theo Bundock, Griff Eden Parish, Will Birch, Lexi Smith, all young players, and I think if we had kept them within our club and worked on them, we wouldn't be in that bad a position just now. We'd have another spine that's growing. And that's what we did when I first took over the Chieftains. I was coaching at Streatham, spoke to Derek. Derek was like, come and do my Division 2. And I told him what I would do. And I said, I'll strip all the old guys out and I'll bring young kids in. And he was like, right, let's do it. And then Nolan Smith, who was in charge of the Chieftains at the time, they were the league above, they said, we need to we're going to come down, we're stopping. So we did, and we ended up being the main team. And I said, I'm still doing this, Derek. And he was like, right, okay, what's your plans? And I'm like, let's bring the kids in. And we got put down, there was 2 tiers, we got put down to Division 2. And I think we drew the first game And then I think we just were unbeaten after that, the rest of the season almost, and we just went up into Division 1. But that was when, we brought Ross Beers, James Ayling, Alex Staples, Green Dan Hammond, Darren Brown, Ben Clement, Sean Easton, all them guys made the spine, and that stayed with Chelmsford for 10, 15 years, something like that.
Yeah.
They ended up playing for.
Yeah. James Ayling and Darren Brown only stopped a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and then we redid it again after that. Sean Easton was heavily involved with the juniors, and we done it with I stepped down to the Warriors, and we had the likes of Jake Sylvester, Brandon Ailiff, and Callum Wells, Ollie Bullock, Novak, and Aaron Connolly, Sonny, Dervish, all them kids. We brought them back in again, and it got to the stage where Clarkie was running the Chieftains, and they won all 3 or 4 titles or cups that they could. And my kids ended up winning 3 out of 3 as well, playoffs, league, and cup. And we were like, we're not good. Unfortunately, Sean moved to Romford, and rightly so, like say Sylvester, Nailith, and Callum, and that, they all went and played up a league. Or that would have been the next spine in there. They might come back into it for a few years, I'd like to think so. But, Chelmsford has a good knack of churning out some quality junior players. Even now, even some of the kids that I've got now that I've seen, I'm thinking, geez, if we had some of that down here, we'd be happy, very happy. I mean, Kira Warrington, James's daughter, she plays for us, she signed for us. And she just played a 19s game there and basically won it for us. We drew 1-1 with Cardiff. She had 53 shots on her and let a goal in. And she was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. But, we'll get there. We'll get there in the end of Oxford. It's a work in progress, for sure. But, that Chelmsford, those days were there. It was a pleasure. It was a real pleasure coaching them kids. Really was.
Yeah, and as you say, I mean, some of the names you've got in there, Chelmsford fans will be sort of sitting there thinking, oh, yeah, those names. Kind of rolls the years back for them.
Yeah.
And even like some of the youngsters that you mentioned in that Warriors side, the likes of Ollie Baldock and Sonny Phillips and that, they're now up, in this league. Yeah. Sonny's at Romford, obviously, but Ollie's having an incredible season with the Chieftains, as he did last year.
Yeah.
But they're, I think that's possibly when they became one of the most hated clubs in Britain, because they kind of just seem to win everything all the time. I mean, similar to what Streatham are getting at the moment.
We literally brought the likes of James Ayling and Breers, Darren, out of the under-18s. They were still under-18s. And Sean was coaching the 18s, and he was like, I need them, or Aaron Connolly, or Blaho Novak. And I'm like, no, they're coming with me because they're actually playing. They're not sitting as a set of third or fourth line. They're playing. They're a massive part of my squad. He soon changed his tune when he was the senior coach. And he was asking for juniors. But, no, I mean, we plucked them right out and just worked them. And, they had a fantastic time, a real good career at Chelmsford. Yeah,
and it's noticeable. I mean, it's something that's been said a lot recently, and people that have been in the game for a period of time will know that it all does move in cycles and whatnot. And at the moment, at our level, the cycle is with the Streatham Redhawks, who they're having an incredible season. They've had an incredible 3 or 4 years. So, at the moment, it's their time. But, someone else's time will come soon. We've got an incredibly young Slough Jet side in this league as well.
Yeah.
And as you said, I don't think Oxford are a million miles away. It almost seems a couple of ingredients away from being a cracking meal.
Excuse me. I feel they need to, if I had control of it, what I'd be saying is, right, we're coming in 8th next year, and I'm going to work on, some of the rising star kids that I know that are homegrown. Those homegrown players give you everything. You know, the majority of them. Make them the main players. Some good seasoned players in there, and let's start working with the youth that we've got there as well, and get them through and get an involvement. Get a link up with the rising, get the link up with the juniors in the rising, so we've got that clear, good pathway going through. But if that was me, I would be saying, right, this is what we're doing, and in 2-3 years' time, we have a good base, we have a good spine, and we're competing. Exactly what Smiths has done at Slime, I think you need someone in there, coaching stature, maybe at a Borna or a seasoned pro, like what, they kind of had at Streatham when, they started, with like Safarn and, people like that, that they attracted you to the club almost. It's a difficult job sometimes getting people to come into Oxford, unfortunately, and I found that the hard way. But yeah, that's what my plan would be, for sure, because it's just a rebuild every year. That's all that happens there, really. A couple of guys stay about, although they've been told 1 year they're not needed, and then halfway through they're needed, like Bundock and Ravenscroft and Jake Williams, and you're like, that's the future of Oxford there. Like it or not, they are the future players of Oxford. So, I mean, but, what do I know?
But it could be a lot more competitive division next year, as we know for sure the Haringey Huskies are coming to join after this season. And we're possibly going to be having the Cardiff Canucks as well. Have you seen what Trevor's doing down there? What do you think?
I think that's fantastic. It's something like, we sort of done at Chelmsford by bringing loads of kids in. But what they'll do, it'll be like the OHA kind of thing. And from what I gather, and, full power to them if they can do that. That will really, I mean, the setup there is pretty decent as it is in Cardiff. If they can get a good group of under 21s and work them, and give them that ice time that they need. Sometimes, unfortunately, it comes down to finances with that. If you can afford to do that, but to give them that opportunity, that's cracking. That is really good. There's rumours about other teams coming into Division 1 as well there. But yeah, it should open the doors to get a lot more juniors in and up there, and maybe some people can carry on and sort of look at the way that Slough have done it, because that product's fantastic there, really good, and they're still
it could almost be the start of a dynasty, really, down in Cardiff, if that takes off and they get enough numbers in.
Yeah, definitely. Really.
Because we lost the Cardiff Fire. Yeah, we lost the Cardiff Fire from that division, not last year, the year before. They dropped into the league below.
Yeah.
And an 8-team division, the problem is there's no jeopardy for playoffs, which does make it a bit of a shame. But from your coaching and everything aside, let's go right back. What got you playing ice hockey?
My cousin, I'm Kirkaldy and Fife, they've got the Flyers, and at that time they won the league at Wembley, and the time when I was kind of like, what's all this noise? My cousin took me up to a Fife Flyers game, and I was like, what is this? The next day, borrowed a pair of skates. On the Sunday, I was on the ice, wobbling about. I never forget, they used to, after the Fife Flyers game, they used to allow you to go on the ice. You hired skates, and off you went. And I was skating around, and I saw a guy that I knew, Stephen Lynch. We're best friends now, being best men at each other's weddings and whatnot. And Stephen came up and sprayed me, and he was like, "Oh, nice skates," or something like that. And I thought, you asshole, I'm going to get you. So that was kind of my first sort of like, my motive almost. So yeah, I went, I skated at every opportunity I could get. I was on that ice. Unfortunately, ice hockey was that big at Kirkaldy at the time. They had an every age group. They had 2 teams, and it was jam-packed. They closed the doors. So I went to the local, one just up the road in Glenrothes, and played there, started there. And I think that was the best thing for me because you got opportunity. And sometimes going to the bigger club is not what you need, to get the opportunity to play. I mean, we always turned out really good goalkeepers simply because we weren't that great and they were getting loads of shots on them.
Yeah, lots of practice.
Like our goalies were becoming GB players and Scotland players and whatnot, like the Downey brothers and people like that. But, so I was at Glenrothes. Unfortunately, that folded. By that time, there was always a rivalry with Kirkaldy. I tried Kirkaldy for half a season. I didn't get on with it. Moved up to Dundee and was playing for Dundee for a good bit of my juniors. And we were lucky enough to make it to the old Wembley weekend where the best under 18s or 19s team from Scotland and England would play with the Dundee, and it was against Durham. But we had like John Haig, David Smith, some real top players. It was nothing to do with me. It was great times. That's what got me in. And I mean, Fife Kirkaldy itself used to be about the Flyers. Everybody went to the Flyers, and you'd wait for an hour and a half to get into the rink. And once you got in, you were like a sardine squashed in there. And it was only 3 imports at the time. And, I saw some fantastic players start there, like Steve Moria, Darcy Cahill, like just phenomenal players, like starting their careers in British ice hockey there. And, it was fantastic time. Really, really loved it. Really loved it.
And then you obviously had a little bit of time playing down south, but you had a bit of GB stuff as well. Was that a junior level?
Believe it or not, I used to be a decent player.
Oh, yeah, I quite believe it.
Believe it or not, I was actually all right. I had a couple of seasons in GB. My first season, we used to do a camp down in Basingstoke, and it was in an army barracks. And I was in a room sharing of, I think, 6 or 8 guys, and I was with David Longstaff, with Lobby. And I was youngest there, right? I think it was, I don't know how old I was, but I was youngest there. I was a pup. And they used to torture me. They would never get away with it now. Like Raljacks, like one eyebrow. I used to have hair as well. They'd chop your hair, and it was just like... And my mum and dad kind of knew, like, I'm coming home a mess, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's expected.
Yeah, it was, and that was the banter back then. But I used to end up falling asleep. I remember one time we're in army barracks, my bed getting kicked, and I shut up and I went, "Well, you beat off, Lobby," and there was a soldier there with a gun pointing it at me, and I'm like, "What the?" And everybody else's faces were white, and so I'm in my pants. I grabbed the first thing, he's like, "Get up out your bed, get out here now." So grab my shirt, and I'm a hockey shirt, like pants and a hockey shirt, out onto the parade square. And basically the IRA had done something about a year before, and there was a bomb threat. And we're all sitting out there at 3 o'clock in the morning going, "What the Jesus?" And all these tanks going round us, and everybody's just white as a ghost, freezing. And then they went, "Right, that's it, it's clear." So about 4 o'clock, we're like, "Back to your bed," sort of thing. Then the light goes on at 6 o'clock. "Right, boys, up you get on the bus, we're going training." You're like, "Jesus."
There's certainly no getting back to sleep after that, is there?
Relentless. So I had a couple of seasons with GB. And then, and I say this story to my kids, when you're playing with, like, say, David Longstaff and Ashley Tate and John Weaver and all these guys that played elite for years, they were at the gym when I was going to bars, hanging out with girls, going to pubs, nightclubs, doing it that. They were doing it to an extent, but not as regular. And I went down that road thinking, no, I'll be fine. But they were going to the gym, they were working out, they were getting extra ice. And yeah, it just, I plateaued, they shot up. And I'll never forget sort of meeting Ashley Tate when he was captain of Coventry. And we were sitting in a Witherspoons just by the ice rink, and he was like, he had all his meal paid for, and then his team car, and team petrol, and wages, and all his bills paid for, and I'm like, yeah, that was the smartest move, Dean. You just took that opportunity away from yourself. But yeah, we had a couple of games. We went on some fantastic tours and stuff. We went on a tour of Canada.
Waiting on a tax return? Hopefully it ends up in your hands. Fraudulent tax returns due to identity theft increased by 30% in 2023. If you're in a bind this tax season, LifeLock can help. Our U.S.-based restoration specialists are experts dedicated to helping solve your identity theft issues. And all LifeLock plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package. So we'll reimburse you up to the limits of your plan if you lose money due to identity theft. Help protect your information this tax season with LifeLock. Save up to 25% your first year at LifeLock.com/aware.
Toronto area, Windsor, Ontario, and Detroit, Austria. We were on national live TV on Austria, and we got hammered 15-0 to the extent I was asking what are the it had like plexiglass coming over your head on the benches. I was like, what's all that about? Yeah, by the third period, everybody throwing their coins and their drinks because we knew what that was about, kind of thing. But it was quite early days, I think, for the GB thing then, and it's not what it was now. But it was great times, fantastic times. But yeah, just sort of took the wrong road, really, if I'm honest with you, and yeah, bit me in the arse.
But it's something actually I think you can do now. I think, God, it was probably about 18 months ago, and I was talking with Sean McMorrow, who played one game in the NHL, a little bit in the AHL, and we were discussing a Finnish coach that he'd dealt with, who always said that it was, you could have a great player at 14, you could have a great player at 15, but until he has a beer and a girlfriend, you don't know how good he's going to be.
That's very true, actually. Very true.
And it's got to be so difficult, especially these days where obviously there's social media, there's a lot of stuff online where people are sort of seeing what they can do. For these youngsters to actually say, no, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it the right way.
I mean, I'd hate to be a youngster now with the social media that's about.
Oh, so would I.
I was an absolute arsehole, I was a mouthy little bugger. But, yeah, that's never a truer word said about that, actually, yeah. Until you've had your first couple of beers. And that was something about, Chelmsford as well. I came down there. I was at Peterborough, and we had a coach, Cam Plant, and they were in the top league at the time, and I would maybe get chucked on once, twice a game, up and down the wing. Off you go, son. That's plenty. But that's how it was in those days. You really did ride the pine. And they said, we're looking for a defender down in Chelmsford. I said, yeah, I'd like to go. And I went down there and I was like, wow, this is different out here, the nightclubs and I was like, can I sort of stay up here? They're like, yeah, just, sort of next season come, give us a shout. And I was like, right, okay. But once all that kind of like bright lights almost of the city got you, you were, okay, I might stay here for a while, and had a great time doing it. But yeah, some of the boys there are just absolute Fruit Loops, and I'm still good friends with quite a lot of them now. But they're a different breed, for some of them.
Yeah, I think that's very true across sport, life in general. That it's very much a different breed these days, doing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier, mad times.
A lot of them are actually kind of got into the coaching now, like say Glenn Morehouse and John Beckett, and coached all them and are friends with all them, and Richard Tomlin, Craig Metcalf. They all played chieftains in, but they knew how to have a good time doing that. Many a time as a coach, I'd get onto that bus and there'd be every single person on that bus without a stitch of clothing on. Yeah. And the driver would be looking at me going, what Scott? Don't worry about it, driver. Just keep pointing that way. Just keep going. Don't worry about them. They were just absolute nut jobs. Some of the stories I could sort of tell, though, obviously not on here, but oh man, it's just some of them boys were a different breed.
We haven't quite got that reputation on Zero Pucks Given for those sorts of stories, not quite yet. Like I don't even get away with half of that stuff anymore. Many a time you'd have someone tied at the end of the training session to the goalpost and chucked onto the ice, not wearing very much. Sometimes the boys would openly just go out and skate at themselves, They were just, they were absolute bonkers, some of them, absolute bonkers. And you had to in a way run with it. You could patrol it to a degree, but, they're not full-time players. They weren't semi-professional. They've got a little bit of beer money. So, you kind of encourage them not to go out on a Friday. Or after a game on a Saturday, but some of them at that point would, and it's not. I think it's more serious now, which is a good thing. It's sort of it's come a bit more professional throughout those leagues, totally throughout those leagues. But it was some of it you just kind of couldn't patrol, and you would just. I mean, I had players that I knew if they hadn't been out and had a drink because they played awful. Like Andy Moffat he was a prime suspect. If he hadn't gone out on a Friday night, he would stink the place out the next day in goal. And you'd be like, what is wrong with him? He never got pissed last night. You're like, really? Okay. Right, there's a little six-pack. Don't say nothing to anyone. Just have them and, get yourself to the ring. He was always there on time, and he was phenomenal when he got going, Absolutely phenomenal when Andy got going. But, he was a nut bar as well with the best of them. Well, I mean, certainly giving you a lifetime of memories, I suppose, then playing this crazy sport.
Yes, definitely has, yeah. There's a few stories, I was trying to think of them. What the bits and pieces that were kind of going on. I remember when I played at Haringey, I felt Chelmsford and I had parties for a season or two, and I played at Haringey, and we won the league, and we went up and we played Whitley Bay, and a lot of them boys had never been to the Bay before, and I said to them, lads, there was Zoran Kozic, I don't know if you know, a lot of your members might, and he used to wear a face mask because he was a London banker and he couldn't get his face messed up and whatnot. And I said, you really don't want to be wearing that face mask if they know that you're old enough not to wear it on here. No, I'd be okay. I was like, all right, man. And then the first face-off with the drop with the puck, he was down there and it was like someone out of slap shot. The boy just lifted his stick and just walloped him right off the head. And he was down on his arse now. It's just like, this is going to be a long, long night. Just a long, long night. But, it's, I've had some great times with the sport. I can't, it's had its good and its bad, its ups and its downs. It's been good to me. I've had some great times.
Yeah, and I know everyone who's probably been coached by you will have good memories themselves from doing that as well. I know you're certainly very well respected in Chelmsford amongst all the fans and the players alike. It's such an honour for me to have you on this podcast. Obviously, it was a Chelmsford Chieftains podcast, but we sort of spread out a little bit. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to come on.
Well, good luck for the rest of the season with the Oxford Juniors, and we're keeping our eyes out for your lads, of course, and how your teams are getting on.
Great. Superb.
Dean Birrell, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you. Right.
A massive thank you to Dino for joining me. What a really great day. I completely lost track of time as we were talking. Some of the stories from the old days in the hockey, it's fantastic stuff to hear. I'm sure there's some that would have been more, possibly more worthy for 4,000 and counting type stories, a little bit of stuff, boys on the road and whatnot. But we kept it relatively clean, as we normally like to do on here. But yeah, massive thanks to Dean. Real enjoy that conversation. So, right, that is it. That is episode 91 in the bank. We are now counting them down. We're getting very close to that Super 100 mark. Again, really trying to plan something cool to do for that 100. Next week, of course, we have the roundup, which will be episode number 92. Then we have Katie Dad, which will be episode number 93. And then the next roundup will be 94. And then Jordan Lauday will be number 95. So we are sort of trying to count them down. I think 100 will actually fall on the playoff weekend, which will be exceptional if that happens. Hopefully I will be there. I've not found out from England Ice Hockey just yet as to whether I've been given media accreditation, but I would certainly hope that comes through the next few days because it's going to be a real pleasure to sort of cover that. For those of you looking for tickets, I have actually spoken with Alexandra Palace today. There is still about 300 available, because I would imagine as soon as the Haringey Huskies confirm their qualification that they will go incredibly quickly. So yeah, don't leave it too late, because say only 300 tickets left. They will sell quite quickly. So yeah, do not delay. Also then, if you're heading out to your clubs this weekend, make sure you get your tickets in advance where you can, get them from the right places. And remember, of course, that no one is streaming their games in South 1 other than Milton Keynes when they're playing at home, and you can get the tickets for that off the Ticketco website. So that no one gets stung, make sure you're doing it all from the right places. Thank you so much for listening. Massive thank you to Dean Birrell for joining me on the podcast. I'll catch you next time. Hello and welcome to Zero Pucks Given, the UK Ice Hockey Podcast. We are in partnership with the Hockey Art Co, hockey clothing for hockey people, worn by the best and hated by the rest. Listeners to Zero Pucks Given get a 10% discount off everything site-wide at hockeyartclothing.co.uk. Just use the code ZP10 upon checkout to get your discount. And we are also in our final week of our sponsorship period with Manscaped, redefining the gentleman with exceptional male grooming products. If you use the code ZeroPucks, all one word, all caps, at manscaped.com, you'll get 20% off and free shipping on any of your purchases there. I'm nice and fresh today. I can possibly not show you where I shaved earlier, otherwise I will probably get cancelled off of YouTube and all sorts of other places. But yeah, you vouch for me, that works incredibly well. So, and we are also on the Sports Social Podcast Network, the largest sports podcast network in Europe. So we're absolutely thrilled to be a part of that. And it just goes to show really just how much Zero Pucks has grown in the last sort of year and a bit that it's been going. So yeah, fantastic stuff. This is episode 91. I'm Ben. Welcome along to Zero Pucks Given. Absolute pleasure this episode. Joined by a guy I started speaking to Dean about a year ago. He was quite excited about the podcast and that it was getting a little bit more details out there about the game in general. But at the time, it was really mainly a lot of chance for Chieftain stuff. And Dean Birrell has had an awful long kind of tie with the Chieftains. He's been many roles within the club. Come back every time a sort of a coach seems to depart, Dean seems to appear on the bench as well, to do his thing. So it was a real great honour to speak to Dean Birrell. And we'll get to that just in a minute. A little bit of breaking news that we had come out today is that Slough Jets putting their roster together for the next couple of years. Of course, last week they confirmed that they've got Seb Moore on signed for 2 years. Today have confirmed that Jack Goodchild has done the same and has locked in for 24-25 and for 25-26. So Smits is certainly putting a strong young roster together to take on the other teams in South 1. So with that news out of the way, we will get straight to our chat with the main man, Dean Birrell. A massive thank you to Dino for joining me. What a really great day. I completely lost track of time as we were talking. Some of the stories from the old days in the hockey is fantastic stuff to hear. I'm sure there's some that would have been more, possibly more worthy for 4,000 and counting type stories, a little bit of stuff, boys on the road and whatnot. But we kept it relatively clean, as we normally like to do on here. But yeah, massive thank you to Dean. Real enjoy that conversation. So, right, that is it. That is episode 91 in the bank. We are now counting them down. We're getting very close to that Super 100 mark. Again, really trying to plan something cool to do for that 100. Next week, of course, we have the roundup, which will be episode number 92. Then we have Katie Dad, which will be episode number 93. And then the next roundup will be 94. And then Jordan Lauday will be number 95. So we are sort of trying to count them down. I think 100 will actually fall on the playoff weekend, which will be exceptional if that happens. Hopefully I will be there. I've not found out from England Ice Hockey just yet as to whether I've been given media accreditation, but I would certainly hope that comes through the next few days because it's going to be a real pleasure to sort of cover that. For those of you looking for tickets, I have actually spoken with Alexandra Palace today. There is still about 300 available. Because I would imagine as soon as the Haringey Huskies confirm their qualification, that they will go incredibly quickly. So yeah, don't leave it too late because say only 300 tickets left. They will sell quite quickly. So yeah, do not delay. Also then, if you're heading out to your clubs this weekend, make sure you get your tickets in advance where you can, get them from the right places. And remember, of course, that no one is streaming their games in South 1 other than Milton Keynes when they're playing at home, and you can get the tickets for that off the Ticketco website. So that no one gets stung, make sure you're doing it all from the right places. Thank you so much for listening. Massive thank you to Dean Birrell for joining me on the podcast. I'll catch you next time.
Sports Social Podcast Network.